So let's start by talking about what validation is. Validation is the recognition or affirmation that a person or their feelings or opinions are valid or worthwhile. Validation means that we are acknowledging another person's emotions, thoughts, experiences, values, and beliefs. Validation isn't about agreeing, placating, or fixing the other person. It is simply the process of learning about, understanding, and expressing acceptance of another person's emotional experience. We are all experiencing a lot of stress right now, and it is hard to validate your child's stress when you are feeling overwhelmed yourself. We also sometimes think that we are helping our kids put their own suffering in perspective when we respond to their complaints by telling them about our own stress or by comparing their difficulties to those with bigger problems. We need to be careful with this approach because this response may actually have the opposite effect. Rather than make our teens feel better or help them to complain less, this approach may actually make them feel worse and complain more. Let's think about it this way. If you have had a terrible day and you are telling me about it, and I say, that isn't bad, you're overreacting. Or if I try to one-up you, you think that's bad? Listen to this. If I say something that does not validate your experience, you are put in a position where you may feel the need to prove to me how bad your day was. If you are feeling like you have to get me to understand how awful your day was, you are going to start thinking of all the reasons that things are terrible. It's kind of like when you're in an argument and you can think of all the reasons that you are angry, but when you're feeling better, it can be hard to remember some of them. Our thoughts are pretty mood congruent. When we feel sad, we think sad thoughts. When we feel happy, it is easier to remember good times. When we are feeling motivated to prove that things are going poorly for us, it is easier for us to think of all the things that are going wrong. So let's think about this another way. If you have a terrible day and I say, that sounds awful, I am so sorry that happened. What a miserable time you've had today. If I'm validating of your experience, you don't have to prove your point. I've already got it. The validation gives you the space to soften a bit. It takes some of the energy out of the interaction. It also puts us on the same team. It is no longer an adversarial interaction. You aren't trying to prove anything to me. We're working together. You feel understood. All of us want to feel understood. I think where it's tricky as parents is that we want to move too quickly to problem solving. It hurts when our kids are hurting, and we want so badly to take that hurt away that we skip over a really important step, which is just to validate that the hurt exists. It is important to point out that you do not have to agree with your child to validate. You do not have to agree that school is pointless to validate that your teen feels like there is no point in going to school. You are simply validating that they feel that way. Sometimes you can just ask, what do I need to understand? Pause. No more talking for a bit. As the teen starts talking, you can keep asking follow-up questions like, what else? Or tell me more, until the teen has finished talking. Sometimes the teen will say something like, if I tell you, you are just going to be mad, try to fix it, yell at me, fill in the blank. I like to respond to that with something like, I am here to listen. Or we can figure out what to do later. For now, let's just talk about what's going on or how you're feeling. While the teen is talking, validating statements like, this is hard, or you are doing so much can go a long way. It's really just acknowledging this is tough. It is important to point out that this isn't tough because you're doing it wrong. You may notice their effort. You are doing so much. You are trying so hard to get through, and it is still so hard. Other validating statements like, you matter, you are loved, I love you just the way you are, can go a long way in communicating unconditional love and compassion. You are just asking how they are feeling and reflecting, acknowledging, noting. It is pretty simple, really. You ask how they are feeling and just reflect it back. Or if they say, I don't know how I am feeling, you take some guesses. Sometimes I find it helpful to offer a multiple choice. There are only 5 major feelings: happy, sad, scared, angry, and embarrassed. You can offer choices and have them pick the best one. Before you move on to anything else, it is really helpful to check that you've been validating. To say things like, is there anything else that I need to understand? Is there anything else that I'm still not getting? Is there anything else that you need to tell me, that you need to let me know, so that I can really understand better how you're feeling? So the first step is to validate. This really goes for anyone, ourselves, our family members, our coworkers. We validate to honor the difficulty before us. It's very difficult to access resilience if we tell ourselves or others that isn't hard. If it isn't hard, I shouldn't need resilience to face it. It is so much easier to rise to a challenge if we can see it as that, a challenge.